You know the face, but do you know the journey? From a rejected concept in the Egyptian desert to the ultimate symbol of freedom in New York. Witness the construction, the voyage across the Atlantic, the wars, and the transformation of the Copper Lady. This is the complete visual saga of the Statue of Liberty. It all started long before New York, in the sands of Egypt. The original inspiration came from the ancient colossi, stone giants that defied time in the middle of the desert. The sculptor Frederick Bartholdi dreamed of creating something like that. He imagined a giant peasant woman holding a torch, a light of Asia, to illuminate the entrance of the Suez Canal. But Egypt refused the idea. The project was too expensive for the time. Bartholdi returned to France devastated, but with the drawing of Liberty still kept in his pocket. He didn't give up. In Paris, he adapted the idea as a gift to the United States. The studio became a dream factory full of plaster and wood molds everywhere. The first part to be finished was the hand. It was so large that a man looked like an ant next to the fingers that would one day hold the torch of liberty. They say the severe and classic face was inspired by Bartholdi's own mother. A serious expression, molded with firmness to face the storms of the Atlantic Ocean. The right arm was built first to raise funds. It was a hollow and surreal structure, rising above the rooftops of Paris like a promise of what was to come. But how to make her stand up? Gustave Eiffel, before his famous tower, created this flexible iron skeleton to support the copper against strong winds. The statue's skin was as thin as a coin. Dozens of workers hammered copper sheets day and night, using the repoussé technique to shape the giant. Finally, in 1884 she was ready, but in Paris. The Copper Lady rose above the French buildings, a giant patiently waiting to travel. Looking closely, the expression is not of joy, but of determination. Bartholdi wanted a liberty that enlightened the world with seriousness, not just a beautiful monument. In her left hand, she holds the tablet with the date of American independence, July 4, 1776. A constant reminder that true liberty requires law. At her feet, almost invisible to those on the ground, broken chains symbolize the end of slavery and tyranny. She is walking forward, freeing herself. The original torch was a work of art in copper and glass, designed to shine like a real lighthouse, guiding ships in the darkness with its internal light. Her crown has 7 rays, representing the 7 seas and the 7 continents. The message of liberty was meant to reach every corner of the planet without exception. The construction was paid for by the French people. It was not a gift from the rich, but from ordinary citizens who donated their coins to celebrate friendship and liberty. Meanwhile, in America, no one wanted to pay for the pedestal. The statue was ready but had nowhere to stay. The project was almost cancelled due to lack of funds. Joseph Pulitzer used his newspaper to shame the rich and ask the people for money. Thousands of Americans sent pennies to save the statue from being forgotten. The chosen location was a small island in New York Harbor, where an old military fort stood. America's gateway was about to change. Workers began pouring tons of concrete inside the old fort. It would be the largest concrete foundation ever made up to that time, the base for the icon. The time came to dismantle the giant. Paris stopped to see its lady being deconstructed piece by piece. It was the end of an era in France and the beginning of the journey. Scaffolding surrounded the statue. Like a reverse puzzle, each copper plate was numbered and removed with surgical care to avoid damage. Seeing the giant face of liberty resting on the courtyard floor was a surreal image. The icon was being prepared to sleep during the long crossing. The torch, which for years dominated the Paris skyline, was slowly lowered by ropes. The symbol of light touched the ground for the first time in its history. Without the copper skin, only Gustave Eiffel's iron tower remained. A black and industrial structure, exposed against the gray sky of Paris. The workshop courtyard looked like a battlefield of giants. Pieces of arms, fingers, and robes were scattered, waiting to be crated for the trip. Everything was stored in 214 huge wooden crates, each one marked with the content: right arm, face, crown raise. The puzzle was ready. A special steam train took the crates to the coast. Liberty did not travel whole, but as a mysterious cargo under heavy tarps ready for the sea. At the port, cranes lifted the heavy crates into the ship. France bid farewell to its monumental gift, sending it to the other side of the world. The frigate Isère received the precious cargo. The ship seemed small to carry so much weight and so much meaning across the dangerous waters of the ocean. The voyage was long and lonely. The small white ship cut through the Atlantic waves, carrying the dream of two countries in its silent holds. They faced storms and rough seas. The ship rocked rhythmically, but the crates were well secured. Liberty endured, even dismantled and in the dark. Down below, by lantern light, sailors checked the cargo. The creaking of wood echoed in the dark, guarding the secret of the statue during the storm. Finally, the triumphant entry into New York Harbor. Hundreds of boats came out to welcome the French ship. America celebrated the arrival of its new symbol. On the island, the pedestal was ready. A massive stone tower, built upon an old star-shaped fort, waiting for its royal occupant. The first crate touched American soil. Steam cranes began the heavy work of raising the giant again, piece by piece, under the New York sun. Reassembly began with the feet. The giant copper fingers were bolted to the structure, securing the statue's base in the new world forever. Like a real-life time-lapse, she grew day by day. First the body, then the shoulders. The iron skeleton was being covered by copper once again. The most impressive moment, the face of Liberty was hoisted whole. A giant mask floating over the harbor, looking towards the American horizon. At the top of the crown, workers tightened the last rivets. The sound of metal echoed. She was complete again, now in her permanent home. October 28, 1886. Under rain, the French flag fell, revealing the bright copper face to the world. The crowd went wild with the revelation. The harbor turned into a chaos of smoke and whistles. Warships and steamboats celebrated, covering the statue in a fog of gunpowder and patriotic joy. On that first night, the torch lit up. A beam of electric light tore through the mist. She was not just a monument, she was a real and functional lighthouse. In the early years, she reigned alone in the darkness. A silent lighthouse guiding ships, with only seagulls as constant company in the cold nights. From inside the crown, the first visitors saw a harbor full of sails and masts. The world was slower, and New York was still a low-rise city. But the sea began to take its toll. The salt air reacted with the copper. Green spots began to appear on the statue's brown skin, changing its color. For millions of immigrants arriving by ship, she was the first vision of America. The symbol that the long journey had been worth it and life would change. In the background, New York began to rise. The first skyscrapers appeared, but the statue, now turning green, remained imposing in the face of progress. She faced harsh winters and brutal blizzards. Covered in ice and snow, the Copper Lady proved she could withstand any weather America gave her. At the turn of the century, the transformation was complete. She was no longer brown. She had become the green giant we know and love today. The 20th century brought giants of steel. Buildings like the Woolworth rose in Manhattan, creating the most famous skyline in the world right behind her. In World War I, camouflaged ships passed by her. Soldiers waved to liberty, taking her image in their memory to the battlefields in Europe. In 1916, saboteurs blew up a nearby depot. The statue was hit by shrapnel. The torch arm was damaged and closed to visitors forever. In the 30s, she saw the Empire State rise. New York became the capital of the world, and she was the guardian of this rising Art Deco metropolis. In World War II, the lights went out. To avoid guiding enemy submarines, the torch went dark. Liberty kept watch in the shadows, waiting for peace. 1945 brought victory. Sailors returning home wept upon seeing her on the horizon. She survived 2 world wars intact and proud. But in the 70s, she was tired. The original torch leaked water, the iron was rusting. Liberty needed help to keep standing. In 1984, the Great Restoration began. Scaffolding covered the entire statue. She was hidden in a silver metal cage to be reborn. The old glass torch, patched and fragile, was removed. A piece of history came down to make way for the new, marking the end of a cycle. The new torch was installed. This time, faithful to the original design. Solid copper covered in 24-karat gold, shining intensely under the sun. Today, when we look closely, we see the reality. Hammered metal sheets, joined by rivets, forming folds that look like soft fabric, but are pure copper. After 2001, the world changed. Coast Guard boats patrol her waters day and night. Liberty is now closely watched, protected at all costs. But her profile remains the same. Aquiline nose, gaze fixed on the horizon. A silent witness to history that never blinks, watching time pass. She protects the city even from storms. Every year, lightning strikes the torch, discharging nature's fury safely, without shaking her structure. Every July 4th, she is the center of the party. Fireworks explode around her, celebrating with light and color the independence she represents. The future brings new challenges. The tides are rising. The water laps closer and closer to her base, but she remains firm in the face of climate changes. For those who take the ferry every morning, she is part of the routine. A constant landmark in a city that never stops changing, seen through the ferry windows. Up there, crews take care of every detail. Maintenance is constant and dangerous to ensure the golden flame never loses its golden shine. Even on the darkest and rainiest nights of today, she is there. Illuminated by floodlights, a ghostly and powerful presence in the middle of the storm. In the end, she is more than metal and stone. As the sun sets over America, the Statue of Liberty remains as an eternal beacon of hope.